Hello, 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 hello. Happy
So,
Friday, everyone. Welcome to another Art in Conversation. Our guest for this week is Ingrid Van Slyke, if I pronounce your last name again correctly, Ingrid. Welcome to our
yeah,
conversation.
thank you so much, Farrin. Thank you so much for yourself and the National Association of Women Artists for having me. I really appreciate it.
Oh, we are glad you could make it this time. All right, we are so excited to have you. Would you please start by telling us who you are, some information about your background, how you became an artist?
Sure. I think I probably have a similar background to many artists where some of my very earliest influences were my parents. My father was trained as an architect, so we always had a drafting table in the house and all his tools. And I remember at an early age, my mom went back to a local community college to take some art classes. So she would take me out of school and bring me to classes with her. And I remember the smell of the rooms and the lighting and all the students making things, and I just fell in love with it. And then I was an artist through my elementary school and in high school. And then in college, I went to into fine arts for a couple years. And then after about 2 years, I felt like the program wasn't really for me. So I switched and went into nursing and became a registered nurse and got my bachelor's in nursing. But for many, many years, I missed my art and always thought about it and was kind of sad that I had left it behind. So about 12 years ago, I decided to take a pastel painting class with a really great artist named Robert Karsten. And he kind of became a mentor to me and brought me back into the world of art. And I've been making art ever since.
Mm.
And currently, I'm a student at the Savannah College of Art and Design. I'm in my second year of my master's degree. And I also teach high school art. And I'm also a full-time working artist.
Oh, are you nurse as well? Are you practicing as a nurse or only?
I'm not, I gave up art nursing to be an art teacher.
Oh,
So,
wonderful.
yeah. Switch careers again.
So, what type of art you are most identified with?
I completely identify with myself as a painter. And I paint both in pastels, soft pastels, and I would say over the last year and a half, I've really picked up oil again. So I've started painting in oil as well.
All right. So, what's the subject of your work? I mean, you mentioned something in your statement that paint from witnessing the natural season as they shift from one to another and allowing to be your teacher, nature be your teacher. So that means you paint a lot from nature. So, what about nature or how nature teaching you? So, would you talk about that?
Sure. So there's a great quote by Andrew Wyeth that says, paint what you know, paint your life. And nature is in my life. I'm sitting here now in my studio, but if I walk outside, I'm surrounded by a forest. I live in upstate New York in the Adirondacks, and every day is different here. The mountains look different, the trees, the sky, the lakes. So it's what I know, it's where I am. And so I paint what I see. And I love to paint plein air. I love to go outside and paint. And in the summers, we live on a lake. So I frequently paint the lake water, how it changes. This image that you're looking at now is I ski. So one day I took this photograph of this big mound of snow on one of the ski trails that I was in. So I paint nature because I'm surrounded by nature all the time.
Mhm.
And I find that it's awe-inspiring and it's beautiful. And I find that it's calming. And in this time of COVID, that it tends to be something that other people find calming too.
Yeah. So, how would you walk us through the process? I mean, is it something you take picture and develop it in your studio, or you said you do plein air? Is that something often you do plein air, or just tell us a little bit about process of your work and how you work?
Sure, I do both. So frequently in the summer, that's when I usually do my plein air because there's no snow on the ground and it's not so cold. I work with a group of artists. Every Thursday we go out and paint plein air. And I find that plein air painting is a fantastic teacher. You have to work quickly because things are constantly changing. The light is changing. And you have to simplify things. You have to go from big shapes to small shapes. You can't be so picky on the details. And so I find that with plein air, you really have to get into it quickly and recognize the shapes, the lighting, and get that down first. I always work with drawings first. I do sketches, whether I'm working from photographs or I'm working in plein air. I always make a sketch first. Usually I'll do a value study after that, find my lights, my darks, and my mediums. Sometimes if I bring it back to my studio, then I figure out my compositions. I use rule of third as the one you're looking at here. This one has a rule of third composition on it. And then I also look for armatures further into more detailed compositions, root armatures, structures, how to move the eye around the page. And I will also frequently do under paintings of all my paintings. So the one you see now is the beginning of the drawing with the composition kind of laid out. The upper middle is where I'll put the pastel down very loosely, kind of an idea where I want, and it doesn't have to be real colors. The third one is starting in to lay in more realistic colors, and the bottom one is putting in the details lastly. So you work from chaos kind of to order, and you work from big shapes to small shapes, and the details come in last. And with pastel, you can layer. I use a pastel paper that has a thick grid on it. So I can use very many layers, several layers. And so you can change the colors in the painting frequently throughout the process.
Okay. How long it takes to create something like this?
It can take a few days to probably a week or two. I would say most of my pastel paintings are not huge. This one's 18 by 24. So they're not massive paintings that would take me a month or more. When I have more times, there's times where I'll spend hours and hours and hours in my studio and work all weekend and get one done. Just because I really love the process and I don't want to leave it. I want to continue working on it. Where some of my oil paintings will take a lot longer.
Is this pastel is something, or the style you painting is something you used to paint from beginning? Is your type of work change over the time?
So I first was shown pastel or soft pastel when I was a student in college. I remember doing figure drawing in pastel and really liked it because you can draw and paint at the same time, and I really love to draw. So that's one reason why I love soft pastel. I find that my work has changed over time. When I first started, I would try to be very realistic, especially if I were trying to paint from a photograph. I'd want it to look just like the photograph. And I would go in and be very finely detailed, and it was very tight. And then as I matured as an artist, I found that I wanted my strokes and my marks to be less tight and more artistic, more painterly, almost more abstract. And that's kind of the direction that I'm going in now, more a loose stroke, more of a expressionistic painting. Fresher, I would say, than when I first started painting.
I mean, since you mentioned this abstract and loose and impressionism, you mentioned it. You inspired by some American impressionism. Can you name who was or who are your inspiration in that style?
Sure. So I'm inspired by the Impressionists, the overall Impressionists, but also the American Impressionists, and especially what I would call the Canadian Impressionists. For the Americans, it would be probably Mary Cassatt and Sargent. And then the Canadian artists that I look at frequently are Lauren Harris and Tom Thompson. They were part of the group of 7. Okay. Those artists are amazing landscape artists. And I pull out their books frequently and look at them. If I'm in the studio and I just can't figure something out, I'll pull their books out and I'll look through their paintings and try to see what they did And then I try to work through that through my paintings. Then frequently I use that for inspiration.
Wow, wonderful. So okay, so overall, you said you living in a small town, and
Mhm.
how you promote your work as an artist in a small town?
I think no matter if you live in a small town or a big town, it's important to be connected with other artists locally around you.
Mhm.
So I'm a member of the local artist group here in town, and I'm also a member of the local Pastel Society and the Plein Air group. Um, we have a wonderful art center here in Lake Placid, the Lake Placid Center for the Arts, and they promote local artists very nicely. They have a gallery in town that I am represented in, and they have frequent shows that I show in. Um, so I feel like it's really important to be connected to your community and your town and do as much as you can with what's around you.
Mhm.
And then I also feel that social media, internet, Facebook, Instagram is important.
Mhm.
And then going from there, because it is a small town and not many places to show your work, I'm involved in other organizations like the Pastel Society of America, where I reach out even further from my community out to more communities.
Mhm.
So I think it's a series of being connected locally and then also branching out and finding other organizations such as this
Mhm.
one to become a member of and be active in. Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. And
Mhm.
as well as Nova, which is like, Nova also has like, sometimes exhibition, all over
Absolutely.
countries and
Hmm.
through different branches they have.
Yes.
So I notice you also do oil as well. Is there a connection between the technique, between the medium actually you choose and the subject you want to paint?
Hmm.
Is it like, you say, okay, I want to paint this one with oil and this one with pastel, or like, the subject is
Hmm.
it? Okay. So would you explain like how you choose between these two medium?
Sure. I have a pretty good understanding of my pastel abilities, and I feel pretty comfortable where I am with them. With oil, I challenge myself frequently, and I tend to make my larger paintings with oil.
Mhm.
I like the fact that with oil, you don't need to put it under glass, you don't need to frame it or mat it. It's very immediate,
Mhm.
and it can be shown easily. If I have to ship a painting to a show, it's a lot less expensive than it is with pastel.
Okay.
It's a lot less heavier. As far as the subject, frequently I will make a painting in pastel, maybe a small study or a plein air painting, or just a painting that I finished that I really like. And
Okay.
I'll say, boy, I really want to try this in oil and see what happens. I'm trying to combine the two techniques, to be honest with you. I'd like to have my oil paintings look similar in technique to my pastel paintings so that they have some continuity.
Yeah. Okay. So do you
It
have a like some you paint in both medium oil and pastel, like some of your painting?
Yes, so the one that you're showing now, I have both an oil and a pastel. The
Okay.
one now is oil, which is quite a bit larger, and then I have a smaller one in pastel.
All right.
Yeah.
So just for my own knowledge, for pastel you can varnish it, right?
You can fix it. You can use fixative. You can spray it when it's finished. I don't usually do that because
Okay.
it tends to, it can make the pigment a little darker.
All right.
Um, Sometimes I will in between layers. If I really want to fix a layer and then move up to different more levels, I'll go ahead and spray it. But
Mhm.
generally, I don't spray my pastels.
Okay.
Yeah,
So there is option to varnish, but if
absolutely. Yes, absolutely. And once you spray it, it's fixed. It's much safer, but you still have to put it under glass if you're going to exhibit it or, show it at all.
yeah, quite similar to a watercolor, because they are
Hmm.
more fragile compared to oil.
Hmm.
So beside landscape, I notice you have some other subject too, such as like, human figures and some more cityscape. Would you talk about those? And for example, this one, we see it here.
Yeah.
Is it something you take picture or you have the model? How you choose and how you paint this type of painting?
So this was taken, I took a photograph of this woman. We were in an airport in California waiting for our flight, and we were in a balcony, and I was looking down and this woman walked out. But it wasn't necessarily the woman that I captured. It was the lighting coming through the windows. And so frequently when I look for a subject to paint, it's the light that I look for, or a moment
Okay.
that I look for, more so than the exact figure. And I loved how the light was coming through her dress, and how it touched the floor.
Mhm.
And so that's why I really wanted to capture this painting.
Wow.
And frequently with my other figure paintings, it's, you know, I would say it's usually the light that I try to capture with figures. Mhm.
All right, I have this also a time lapse of your boat. You have a series with boat painting. Is that something locally you paint?
Yeah, so I mentioned before, I live on a lake in the summer,
Yes.
and to get anywhere, most of the time you have to drive a boat. So all the youth, the kids growing up, all know how to drive boats. My kids drive boats to work. They're just part of your life every day on the lake.
Yeah.
And so I find them to be art pieces, especially the wooden boats.
Yes.
So I love to paint boats. This piece is my daughter actually is the back person in this crew, this boat. And she was in a race, and I took this photo again. It was the light that captured this image, not necessarily the subject, but it was light that I really wanted to paint.
The
And
reflection and the light are beautiful. You capture it really well.
thank you.
So
Exactly.
I really enjoy this painting. So what role does an artist have in today's society, in particular during this pandemic, which is we notice it getting again huge?
Yeah.
So what's your thought about that?
I think artists have a huge role in society. It doesn't have to be something that's really grandiose. It can be very close to you, to home. And so this is where my nursing background kind of influences my art. As I said, that I also teach high school, and high school kids frequently are very stressed right now. And I find that when I'm teaching them, they get an hour of stress reduction. They get an hour of mental freedom where they can focus just on what they're doing, and everything else kind of falls away.
Mhm.
And it's wonderful to see. I have many students that will come to class and be all stressed out when they get there. And then I settle them down, get them into drawing or get them into painting. And they're almost getting into the zone where I'll say their name and they don't answer because I know they're in that place. And so it makes me very happy to know that I'm able to share my art with them and give them some comfort.
Yeah.
And I think too, even what I paint, I try to give comfort. I know the Adirondacks here are becoming very, very busy all of a sudden. A lot of tourists are coming here. And I think it's because people need to find communication again with nature. And I find that when I paint nature and show it, um, it gives people comfort.
Yeah.
And so I think that's how I can express it. I mean, there's loads of other ways, sculpture, expression,
Mhm.
that artists can make a huge indent in their communities. There
Yeah.
was a saying I remember one time that there's never been a community that's gone to the wayside. When artists come in, they always make a community a better place.
Exactly, because they're creating that comfort. I mean, it's all art are about creating, or like
Yes.
representing this comfort. So in particular, like nature, which is you represent, or you actually create it again within your painting, right? So
Mhm.
this is all about making creating this calm and comfort environment.
Yes,
So
exactly.
yeah, as a woman, I know you mentioned when we were talking yesterday, you have a group women artists, and you trying to create a book. Would you, if I remember correctly, would you walk us through that, what you're doing in that women group and what you guys trying to achieve?
Well, actually, it's one of my classes at SCAD. It's all women, and the book that we had to read was called Broadstrokes, 15 Women Who Made Art and Art History, and it's a fantastic book. It's a really light read, but it goes through 15 women artists and how they became artists and their lives and their work, and some of them are well known and some have faded into history. But I would highly recommend that if you want a nice, easy read about art history, especially with women, that's the book that I would recommend.
So, as a woman, artist, what do you think? What's your thought about position of women in a world, in art world overall?
Well, that's interesting. And I'm sure you're familiar with this too. You go through so many art history classes in school, or you hear about the artists, you read about artists, and most of them are male. And you wonder, where were all the women in history? And now you find that they were there. And one thing that I've learned through my courses at SCAD is that many of these men or artists, we'll put it that way, became well known, like Jackson Pollock, because of the art critics at the time, like Greenberg. And the world of art was a little bit smaller. And if you made it through these Vasari's art critics, you became the well-known artist. And women weren't included in those art critics very frequently. So they are there. You have to dig for them and find them, but they are there. And I find that now, we call it the world of pluralism, that women can do anything in arts. They are all there. They're in every type of medium and genre. And they're doing really, really wonderful things. And I love the women too, that especially aren't afraid of expressing being a mother or being a wife or living in their society.
Yes.
Musing. There's one female artist that I know that is a mom, and she uses her children's clothing in her paintings, and she glues them onto the canvas. And so women are finding all sorts of ways to be creative and express themselves in the art world today.
Yes, so we are really fortunate, we living in this time period, compared to women artists in the past, which they didn't have this opportunity. And I always talk to my student about how they suffered. Even if they wanted to go and paint outside, they had to dress up as men in order to be accepted and to paint outside. So that was something, thanks God, we don't have today.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So, and in particular in the smaller community also, it's quite difficult. Even today, we know in some areas, still women are not accepted as artists. It's not so common for women even today. But in the past was really worse. And, they didn't get any opportunity to express themselves.
No, and they had to do all sorts of things to keep their art going. The stories of these women in the book, some of them what they had to do to survive just to be an artist. And art really saved many of them. And it kept them going through everything that they had to go through.
Yes. So I know there are a lot again to talk, and she has this beautiful website, which has just show a few of our artwork. But our time almost over. Do you have any last word for our today guest, Ingrid?
I would say that, speaking from a woman that had, in the middle of my art career, I went into nursing and kind of took a different path. I would say for those women that are similar to me, that always wanted to be an artist, but kind of life isn't showing you the direction yet, I would say to keep your dreams. Don't stop learning. It's a little bit at a time. It doesn't have to be a major piece of work. It could be a simple 15-minute drawing, but just keep moving in that direction. And I think not to be afraid to learn new things consistently. Don't be afraid to reach out and join other groups with other artists, stay active. But I would say continue to learn and grow as an artist. And even if your style and your mark making changes over time, that's okay.
Exactly. So the same thing we do today, I mean, we create this home. Now it's a home for women artists, and how we join together, and then how, like, in this, in particular in this situation, which we can go outside and express ourselves and exhibit and do this. So that's the time we can get together and share our artwork, even if not in person, at least through some media. Thank you very much. We're really glad to have you today, finally. So this is Ingrid website. If anyone would like to see more of her beautiful artwork, she has huge collection, and all of them so calm and so comforting. I encourage you to go and see her work. Thank you very much, Ingrid. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so very much for having me. And again, thank you to the National Association of Women Artists. I really, really appreciate it.
All right. Thank you very much. Enjoy your weekend, and